Today we're riding alongside Luis Patricio on his typical commute to work here in London, Ontario. Coming to Canada from Brazil years ago now, with its massive population and fairly dangerous roads, he doesn't own a car and gets around by every other mode of transportation there is. He has quite a bit to say and show on his simple and relatively short 3-kilometer bike commute from Hamilton Road and Rectory Street to downtown near King Street and Clarence Street. We'll be taking the infamous Hamilton Road, which is neither a local street, even though there are homes and businesses all along it, nor a proper road, even though drivers habitually use it as a thoroughfare, often recklessly. But you'll learn more about that as Luis chats while we join him on his commute to work. So let's get on with it. How did you get into cycling? Like, what was that beginning?
For me, it was really, I think it was latent. I just need something to spark that in me. And for me, it was moving to a different city. So learning how to navigate a different city, and I still didn't have a job. And I think the bike was just the easiest, most comfortable, and honestly, the best way to really get to know a city well. And then everything just, after that it's like, oh, this is good for my body. Oh, this is good for the environment. Oh, I'm not taking too much space. And it just became my main mode of transportation. And that was in 2004, so about 20 years now.
Before that, did you drive a car or?
Yeah, I got my driver's license as soon as I could, and that means 8 days after I reached the legal age to drive. I bought my dad's car, and the city that I grew up with was so anti-bike, like not friendly for bikes at all, and public transportation is horrible. If you don't like here in Canada, you should see back in my hometown in Brazil. So I was definitely a car driver from day one pretty much, and I always went everywhere driving a car from 18, that's when we can get a driver's license, from 18 to 24, 25. And then again, like I said, when I moved cities, still in Brazil, it was much easier, and I realized how I could, just use a bike and how much better that was for me. And that's one of the things that I noticed, like when I moved here to Canada, it's like just how wide the roads are, and compared to Brazil, how safe the roads are here. And we're doing this, so this is kind of my commuting route. It's the one that I used to take almost every day. Since we had a few road violence incidents. Watch out, I think there's a car coming on your side of the road. My partner really got concerned, and she asked me, and I think it's a reasonable request, for me not to ride on Hamilton anymore. So we're gonna ride on Hamilton just to see how it looks and how it feels like. But this is the road that almost every year someone dies on the road, and it's either a cyclist or a pedestrian. This intersection right here, Hamilton Road and Rectory, a pedestrian was killed, I want to say 2020, was in the winter. So he was crossing and the car hit him. And the two most recent cyclists who died in just last month, and one in 2022, is just a few blocks west of here. But we also have another cyclist who died on Hamilton and East Street, a few blocks west, and then a pedestrian who died on Hamilton Road in Highbury, more or less. So for Canadian standards, it's a pretty high number of people dying on the road. And even though it's nothing compared to Brazil, like in my city, we'd have like 40 people, cyclists, dying on the road every year. But it's still pretty scary. And I think for the amount of infrastructure that we have in Canada, it makes no sense that we are letting people die on the roads because of road design. I think I should make that clear that, let's go. And you're turning left here. So this is Hamilton Road. We should make it clear that it's not about, obviously they're bad drivers, obviously they're bad cyclists, but it's really about the design of the road. So we're just biking by the last cyclist who died. You can see the Ghost Bike, Hamilton and Redon. And you can see it's a road, it's a stroad, because there's a lot of residential places here. It's also very commercial. You have the library, you have the senior center, you have restaurants, you have stores, bakeries, Tim Hortons, church, schools, mosques, and it's all in that same strip. And you can see how busy it gets. One measure that they did to make traffic a little bit better is to put a traffic light for pedestrians. Again, in terms of urban design, and here's another Ghost Bike right here where they put the pedestrian light. In terms of urban design, this still have a long way to go because it doesn't shape physically the urban design, the urban form. We're really talking about, you know, narrow roads, protected bike lanes, wider sidewalks. And this area here actually has a secondary plan. The secondary plan is an additional plan on top of the citywide mobility master plan that looks into this street here, and they have things like trees that they want to plant. They have even like an archway right here on Hamilton Road and Adelaide to kind of mark the entrance of the city, making some of the park spaces a little bit better, and just a better treatment of all the intersections. Like right now, you really can see how they make it convenient for cars to go through or turn or whatever it is, just improving the flow. And it's definitely an area that is struggling and trying to revitalize its local business. Like you can make your own wine. This is the place, Ben, that we make wine, the wine that we gave you. Danny's right there at the corner. So you have that on camera now. And to me, there's no surprise that those businesses are struggling, because who want to stop on a busy, loud, dangerous road like this one? We're gonna go straight here. There is so many studies, and every single time when you make it quieter, when we create really, you know, meaningful traffic calming measures, when you allow people to get there on foot and on bike in a way that is safe, in a way that is just nice, you can really get a lot of more foot traffic that inevitably will bring more business to your local area. And if you're familiar with the Strong Towns movement, they talk about this all the time, right? It's a difference of a street and a road. A road, you want connection, you just want to pass through. And a street is about placemaking. You can't have both and think that they're gonna work. If you try to have both, you have a strode, and then you have the worst of the two worlds. So Hamilton is a classic example of a road here in London. And it definitely, because of its mixed nature, like commercial and residential, like in the heart of the neighborhood, with schools and churches and community centers and libraries, it really needs to become a street, not only for business, not only because it's good for business, because it's the ethical thing to do, as we saw with so many deaths on that road. Yeah, and the other thing, and it's something that I use all the time when I'm talking about cycling infrastructure, I ask people if they know how long it takes to, how much people can flow through a street if they're driving, cycling, riding the bus, or walking. And people usually think that the car is the most efficient way, is the most efficient mode of transportation. And in fact, it's the worst. So you can move way less people if people are driving than you can move people if they're biking, and you can move even more people if they're taking the bus. So public transit also is big. It's a big part of that equation to make sure that we have routes that connect people. And the east side, as many Canadian cities, the east side is where we have a lot of jobs, is the industrial side of the city. So when you're proposing protected bike lanes and wider sidewalks, it's not to the detriment of the driver. One, because as soon as you get cyclists out of the road and in a separate lane, traffic can flow better. And those traffic calming measures, they can slow down. And again, this is physics. It's not just, just not wishing that will happen. Just step to the side here. The top speed might be slower, but because traffic can flow more smoothly, it can be in movement constantly, the overall time can be actually short. And there are, again, several cities that did a traffic calming renovation in some of the streets, and the traffic, it's not moving super fast because they're not speeding to the next light and then stopping and then speeding again. But the distance to cross the strip is actually shorter. So this is something that can definitely benefit drivers as well. Is measures that can make Hamilton Road and many cities in London actually more nice just to be in, and even if it's just going through, nicer to go through as well. And this is usually one of the hardest things to convey, because it's a bit counterintuitive, that you can actually slow down and get there wherever you're going faster.
So it's about the averages.
Yeah.
All right. So then, as we kind of continue.
How long is my commute?
Yeah, how long is your commute?
Usually take about 20 minutes. As we can see, we're stopped here for the train. So I guess that's the main thing that might affect my commuting time, if you have a train or not. But even with the train, it's something between 15 to 20 minutes from Hamilton Road area right to downtown. And also because there's a lot of construction going on York. And that's another thing, like usually when they're doing constructions, they plan the detours and routes for cars, but they rarely think about bikes. And I can think of quite a few examples that they actually throw the bikes in the busy roadways, or they have no detour, no signage, no signage at all for bikes, like where they're supposed to go. We just get to the construction site and you're like out of luck. What do I do from here? So lots of construction going in downtown, so we're stretching my commute a little bit, going up to Dundas and then all the way to Clarence, and then I'm right there. Dundas has some construction too, but it is a good piece of infrastructure. As soon as you go past Wellington, you're on the flat street. I'm gonna do the turning lane like the drivers do. just because it's more efficient and I don't have to wait for the light 2 times. I think I saw on a City of London website that both ways of turning left are valid options for cyclists.
So how do you like this bike lane?
I think this bike lane is pretty good. Again, the challenge is not to design roads, streets as roads. There is a lot of driveways, and the drivers are still getting used to the bike lane. So we get a lot of people coming in and out without necessarily looking. Even with the parking lot, I like the parking lot that protects. It's a pretty good buffer between car traffic and bike traffic. But before they had planters, and the cars would just plow through the planters. And even with those concrete blocks, you can see how some of the cars actually goes past them. So even after the car, we still have like a little bit of a buffer, again, to prevent them to get to the bike lane.
So even when you give vehicles a bunch of space, they take even more because you have to account for the errors that drivers will make. I've seen this so many times right here where trucks are basically almost in the bike lane, even though they have all this extra room. And it's like, guys.
Like a 45 parking spot that is super easy and convenient, but they still want to push. And that's the other thing, right? Like there's a whole campaign now in Ontario going about oversized vehicles. We keep making vehicles bigger and bigger without any need to. And then the roads, they need to get bigger and bigger. Leaving even less space for cyclists. Yeah, you're saying how we give space to cars and they need even more space to make sure that the cyclists are safe. And this is one of the fundamental ways of thinking about urban design, and particularly road design in North America. It comes from a good place. It's good intentions. We want to make sure that we reduce fatalities in traffic. So the rationality is we're gonna make everything possible, so even if an accident happens, people won't get killed. People in cars. Because it's a car-centric mentality, that thinking applies mostly to people inside cars, people driving or passengers inside cars. And coupled with the speed as one of the main goals for traffic design, to make sure that the traffic flows. So you want at the same time cars to go fast and people not to die if they are in cars. What that creates is a situation where we are designing roads almost as if you're designing a racetrack. Like we have the road and then we have a buffer. So if something happens in the car, he has more space to go and whatever, lose direction, but doesn't hit anything. You have things, and you can see pretty much now every new piece of infrastructure is like that. It's like all the poles, they have brake points at the bottom to prevent if a car crashes, so it doesn't get stuck, it doesn't get the impact right away, and it actually flops, it actually bends. But if you pay attention, a lot of those, and you have like right here on Dundas Place, right? At the corner, those poles, they are basically where pedestrians need to stand to wait for the light to turn green so they can cross. So yes, you're making it safer for drivers, but you're actually creating more dangerous spaces for everybody else. And those are just two examples, right? That buffer on the road that you need to take more space for cars, and the poles that flop and break instead of staying straight. Everything, most of the way that we design roads are to prevent people to get injured or dying if they're in the car. But very little thought is given to how do you do that for people who are walking or biking.
Whew. One, get a workout, but two,
have you played bike polo?
I have not, but
you have what it takes to start.
Yes, I've been told that. Yeah, this is basically my.
You need to hold the mallet the whole time, and you have the practice.
Yes, yeah. It'll be so light compared to this.
Here's one example of construction, right? So it's not necessarily that it's hard to cross here. This is not by any way a difficult one to cross. But the challenge here is that there is no signage for cyclists. So you don't actually know if you're allowed to do that, if there's any direction you should go to, because there's nothing telling you to do that. And because they don't think about bikes, some cases they are expecting bikes to just do their thing. In some cases, they actually don't want bikes going through the construction site or whatever they're doing on the roads. But because there's no signage, like you don't know. You're literally thinking, is this okay? And sometimes, someone from a construction crew comes and say, hey, you can't be here. Like, but it didn't have the sign.
Yeah. It really is that.
Yeah, no, they really don't think about bikes. We're gonna turn left here. And here's where I was counting bikes for the pedal pole, right in front of the tap center. And then you have the urban planning department from the city. I was surprised of how many people arrived biking, how many of the employees were actually biking to work, which is encouraging. It's good to know. I think one of the things that we always say, that it's hard to plan if you don't know what it feels like, what it is like. And when you see a lot of the folks from the urban planning department arriving by bike, you think that they experience firsthand what it feels to be a cyclist in London. The interesting thing about pedal pole is that I had a chance to talk to Ryan Craven from the city, and he pointed me to a public resource. There is online, you can check all the counters, traffic counters in the city, and the city has only one traffic counter that counts all 6 modes of transportation: bikes, pedestrians, buses, cars, trucks, and motorcycles. Hey Marty, what I was saying, that there's only one counter in the city, and it's downtown, it's on Dundas Street, that counts 6 different modes. So it's interesting because you can compare how much people walk, bike, drive, or how many buses go through the street. And obviously Dundas Street being Dundas, we have many more people walking than people driving, right? Like active transportation and motorized transportation is a good 50-50 split. So again, it begs the question, how much money we pour into motorized and how much money we put into active transportation in relation to each other, and what is the mobility justice there? Good morning. Hello, Linda.